I'm going to whip his. He's the biggest, whining little piece of I have ever seen in my whole life.
NASCAR's decided to maintain that parked position on the driver of the 18 truck for the balance of the weekend.
Let's take a look at the timeline of events for Kyle Busch over the last week. Of course, Friday it was November 4th when he wrecked Ron Hornaday. Saturday, November 5th, he was parked by NASCAR for the remainder of the weekend at Texas, fined $50,000, and then M&M's asked to be removed from the car. And then on Friday, he addressed the media, apologized for what was going on, and today he will start 34th in the Cobalt Tools 500. And Kenny, when you look at this over the years at what had happened, you saw the background there, and people are always trying to compare this incident to what happened between Carl Edwards and Brad Keselowski. Different thing. It's a history of things that led up to this punishment.
You know, when you look back on our sport, you know, fighting, feuds have been a part of NASCAR. You go back to the 70s, you see Donnie, Cale, you know, all of them fighting. That put us on the map. The fans like it. And then the sponsors said, no, we don't want none of that because it's embarrassing us. Then the fans say, no, we want to see fighting. And then NASCAR says, okay, boys, have at it. So here we are. And, you know, we have seen this new era where, you know, Carl Edwards says, boom, you know, I'm going to wreck you, Brad Keselowski, at Atlanta. Now, was that right? Well, there was no precedent set. NASCAR said, no more of that, and when we see it, we'll react to it. Unfortunately, Kyle, you know, we still don't know exactly when it is, but I do believe in my heart of all hearts that when you take a championship contender out of something like, you know, Ron Hornaday was only 14 points behind the championship. Kyle, you can't take a championship guy out of something when you're not racing for it.
Yeah, no, he's not racing full-time in that series, and that's the point Kenny speaks to. I think we've all had dust-ups. I mean, we saw Jeff Gordon and Jeff Burton, two of the nicest guys in the garage area, go at it. But I think if we go back just through this year, and you go back to Darlington and Kevin Harvick, you go back to Kansas and Joey Coulter and Richard Childress, you go to Bristol with Elliott Sadler, you go to Texas, the common denominator has been Kyle Busch. When we look at that timeline from last year and this year, Kyle Busch seems to put himself in a position for this to happen. And how many times during that piece did we see Kyle Busch sitting in a media center apologizing? Apologies only go so far. You're talking to Mark Martin the other night on trackside. When did drivers start using cars for retaliation? Drivers used to speak to each other in the garage area. They used to get each other in between the trucks and scream at each other. They didn't tear up the equipment. Kyle has to learn not to retaliate on the racetrack and use those cars. And as long as he does, he's going to continue to be the common denominator that everybody tries to avoid.
Now, Kyle, you're one of the nicest guys we know.
Yeah, but I've gone off, baby.
Yeah, you've gone off a couple times
Maybe it's
before.
in the name. Maybe it's just in the name.
Maybe
Kyle
it's the hairdo
Kyle.
here, but there's Kyle, and who is that, Bobby Hillen?
That's Bobby Hillen. I didn't want to talk to him. See, now right here, I get tired of hearing him, and I just flip his visor down.
You've had a history of the visors.
Yeah, but let me say this. We didn't use our cars. And here's Carl and I talking after Bristol. Carl and I are sitting there talking. And this goes back to what I said Mark Martin said. This is when drivers would talk to each other and explain everything.
Oh.
Now, that's
There's
talking
Mikey.
when you fist right there.
Oh.
That's not
Mikey
me,
and
ladies and gentlemen. That's
Mikey Walker.
But drivers used to go and they used to talk to each other. They didn't run their cars into each other. They didn't tear stuff up, and they didn't take people out of racing. And that's where everything seems to have changed in recent years. And it's got to concern the fans, too. I'm not piling on Kyle Busch. I'm not saying that at all. I think he's an incredible driver. But he's got to be able to control those emotions and talk in the garage area and quit using his race car to do this stuff.
And it's a safety issue.
It becomes a safety issue, definitely.
Let's now go down to Wendy Venturini for more on the guys that are hot under the collar and tempers and how it's evolved. Wendy?
Yeah, it sure has. And while we do know that M&M's pulled their sponsorship off the car for the final two races, they don't know, and we don't know exactly what's happening for 2012. We're still waiting. We do know Mars Management is here this weekend and will be in Homestead as planned. And on top of that, Interstate Batteries, a 20-year sponsor at Joe Gibbs Racing, has stepped up to the plate and gotten on the car for Kyle Busch for the final two races. They said they don't condone Kyle's behavior, but they did want to support Joe Gibbs Racing. Here is what Kyle Busch and Joe Gibbs Racing and Joe Gibbs, Coach Gibbs, had to say Friday when we arrived in Phoenix.
For me, I'm utmost apologetic to everybody that's been having to go through this situation, and there's no one to blame but myself. So I'm here today to basically say that you know, I apologize to everybody involved in this whole ordeal. Joe has been a huge supporter of mine through all of this, and I can't say enough about him, all the folks at JGR, all the guys on my M&M's team. We're here to say that we want to learn from this. We want to move on, and you know, certainly there's some remorse from my side, and to be apologetic to the M&M's brand and all of those folks that have put their heart and soul into this NASCAR program for years, and you know, we want to continue that relationship down the road.
I want to support Kyle, and I feel like that this could have a positive impact on Kyle. And I'm committed to him as a person. I like him. We've gone through a lot together. And as far as us and Joe Gibbs Racing, we're looking forward to a long relationship.
And if I can put in perspective what this has been for the 18 team that had nothing to do with Ron Hornaday and the Truck Series escapade, they're here, and when they arrived on Friday, the frustrations continued because when the 18 car rolled out onto pit road for practice, it blew an engine, and that was because 4 rocker arms were left loose and not torqued back at the shop. This is just frustration among crew members, and whether or not you're thinking clearly, it's the end of the season, and frustration among everyone, and even if you weren't involved in the event, but no less a simple mistake back at the shop is what caused the engine failure for the 18, and they will have to start in the rear of the field. But we do know Kyle Busch was still fairly quick in happy hour. He was 5th fastest in happy hour. Johnny?
Wendy, thanks a lot. The plan B at Joe Gibbs Racing certainly is very good, and nobody better than Kyle Busch at working his way through the field and coming up to the front.